Good afternoon, everybody. I'm gonna say congratulations to y'all. Y'all made it to the last presentation of the day. So congratulations, clap for yourself. So first thing, I'm up here to talk about what's new in AurosIQ. And the answer to that is a lot. AurosIQ has been very busy over this past year. We've had 4 IQ releases, so I am going to touch on some highlights of each release from IQ 19 up until our most recent release, which is IQ 22. I will ask that if you have questions, because I'm gonna be throwing a lot of stuff at you, please feel free to ask those questions in the app. And at the end, we'll make sure that we get all of your questions answered. If you're shy, you don't want to talk on the microphone, that's fine. Just go ahead and text it in there, and we'll get to those for you. So the first release we had after our conference last year was our IQ 19 release. As you can see here, I have some highlights on the screen for you. One that I will go ahead and just quick touch on right now is the issue editing lock. We went ahead and reduced that down to 1 hour, so that way you don't run into any issues where somebody's trying to update something and it's locked by someone else. So the first highlight I want to look into is the overall due date. That's something we introduced in IQ 19 as a standard element. The overall due date allows you to have a due date on your assessments, but in addition to just having your due date to know when you want your assessment done, you have the ability to configure reminder emails for your evaluators. So you have the option to set reminder emails, either a single reminder or a daily reminder if you really want to bug them to make sure they get their work done. But you have that ability to set that up in your assessment type configurations. In addition to the ability to send reminder emails, you have 3 different ways you can configure your due date. You can do it as creator's choice, which is the default for a lot of our things, where when the assessment creator creates the assessment, they just say, hey, I want it due on this date. But you also have 2 options to offset that due date. So if you know a design review takes 2 weeks, when you create the assessment, say, hey, 2 weeks from now, go ahead and say this is when this is due. So it automates that selection for the creator, as well as offsetting it from a project element of date type. So if you have gate reviews or milestones and you know it needs to be done within timing of those, you can offset it from there as well. In addition to those configuration options, if you look in your top right corner of the screen, we have the overall due date displayed directly in your masthead, directly next to your assessment status. So it's very clear to your evaluator when they get that assessment, they know exactly when they need to have this completed by. You'll see in the picture that it's also red, so if it is overdue, it will change colors to let them know, like, hey, oops, I thought I updated this status and I forgot, so let's go ahead and finish this assessment. It's also shown in our COP homepage in your search results, your list of your assessments on the bottom. So if you're a manager and you're looking and you're trying to see, kind of manage what's going on, you can sort by that due date there as well, so that you can see kind of what's almost due, what needs to be done, what's past due, to make sure that that work is getting completed on time. The next thing we have in IQ 19, the very exciting thing that we introduced was our generative AI functionality. So I'm gonna go over 2 of those items. The first one I'm gonna talk about is our knowledge writing assist. So a lot of times when people are writing KPACs, they run into little issues because they're taking stuff from a document, a specification where everything's very technical, very educational, and they struggle with being able to make something actionable or granular or concise so that the evaluator, when they get it in the assessment, knows exactly what they need to do. So with our AI Knowledge Writing Assist, you have the opportunity within your KPAC when you're writing, you can go ahead and click on our little AI icon, that star right there, and you'll get 3 prompts to enter into our AI assistant. So you can see the very first one, make granular, concise, and actionable, which is what I just said, which makes a great KPAC. You can click on that and it'll open your AI assistant, and the AI assistant will go ahead and rewrite the information you already have in your description into something that matches the prompt that you chose. So once you have that, you can read through it. You have 3 options. You can replace it. If you're like, this is perfect, this is exactly what I want, you can click that and it'll go ahead and replace everything you have. You also have the ability to insert it below what you already have. So maybe you want to look at them side by side and just make sure it has everything you need. And you also have the option to try again. So once you get into the AI assistants, you can write in your own personalized prompt, but we do have those 3 to kind of open it up. So if you don't like what it put, you can say, hey, I want you to do it this way, make it this way, I like that better. You have the ability to write your customized prompt, but we do give you 3 just to kind of get you in and get you started with some options. So the next generative AI functionality that we added was our search, find, and learn functionality. So we've heard a lot about people searching for things, trying to find things. Ideally, we would like to be able to deliver that knowledge to you, but we know there's some times where that cannot happen and people need to search for things. So if you have your generative AI functionality turned on in your instance, right at the top next to whatever logo you have in your top left corner, you'll see a magnifying glass. If you click on that, you will get our search, find, and learn functionality. What's very nice about this is you can just type in plain text. So if you're like texting in Google, like, hey, where's the nearest restaurant? You would write something just like this. So like we have here, we have it set up where you write in your plain text prompt, and as you can see below it, we have our 3 assets, your KPACs, your assessments, and your issues. You have the ability to search in each one of those assets with that same prompt. And once you get your results, as you can see over here on the bottom right of your screen here, you have the ability to filter. So if you get your results and you're like, oh, I know it's in this particular COP, you can filter to only show those KPACs from that particular COP. You can also filter the KPAC types as well. So you can take that list and you can even pare it down even more to find exactly what you're looking for. If maybe you don't want to filter by that, you just want to say, hey, just give me kind of a summary of what's there, you do have the ability to generate an AI summary based on your search results. So a lot of times you get those summaries, you just don't kind of know where they're from. They're just anywhere in the web. You know exactly where the information came from your prompt, because you have the list of the sources right there. So our last highlight we're going to talk about for IQ 19 is the purge projects. This is more for your overall admins. Everybody's not going to see this, but it's something that will be extremely helpful. In the past, when you go to purge a project, you go to delete it, we tell you, hey, you got these many assessments, you have this many issues, you have this many team boards, which is nice, but there wasn't a way to see what they were. So we added a link and able to view that data so you can make sure that you're not deleting something that you actually may need later on. So if you click that view data link, you'll see at the picture towards the bottom of the screen, you have your 3 tabs for those 3 assets, and you can look at a list of what all they are. Make sure you go through and say, oops, I almost deleted this and we needed this information for something later. So it's just a way to make sure that when you're cleaning everything up, that you're not getting rid of something that you will need in the future. So this is the conclusion of our IQ 19. Like I said, if you have questions specific to this, please put it in the Venti app and we will get to them at the end. So the next IQ version we'll be going through is IQ 20. So IQ 20, we added probably one of my favorite things that we added over this past year, which was the ability to configure your assessment controls per type. So that, as you can see there on the list, there are a lot of things that I'll go through later through the slides. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into those, because I'm pretty sure if you don't have IQ 20 or later, it's something that you've been looking forward to hear about. So the very first thing is your applicable header fields per AC type. Basically, this is the ability to choose which assessment extended elements you want for each individual assessment type in your COP. So this is super helpful if you have a process where you have a process level assessment and you have child assessments, you have information you need on one assessment, you don't really need on the other, and vice versa. This allows you to say, hey, put these applicable extended elements on this particular assessment type and don't put them on this other one, or add these ones that I didn't want on the other one. What's really cool about this is that you have the ability, if you see over here on the right side, when you add your elements, it's simple as clicking a button and just picking from the list of all the assessment extended elements that you already have in your COP. Another nice option is to the left of the box, you have those 6 little dots. If you click on those, you can reorder those extended elements, and they will show up in whatever order you prefer when you're in the assessment wizard creating your assessment, as well as on your assessment header, which is shown on the 2 pictures to the left of the slide. Another thing that's super nice, because previously, if you remember, there's a whole nother page where you have to add these assessment elements and order them and all that good stuff. If you want to delete them, just hit the little X on the right side of the box. It's gone. If you're like, oops, I didn't mean to, it's as easy as pushing that plus extended element and you can add it directly back to your assessment. So it's super simple way to customize your assessment type to have the relevant information, not only that the evaluator will need to identify it, but what managers will need to report on these assessments later. So now that we've talked about some of the extended elements that you can put on your assessment types, now we have made it extremely easy to require what extended elements you want on your assessment types. So if you need a particular element filled out when you create the assessment, all you have to do is go to the required line item in that box, check the box. As simple as that. Previously, there was a whole nother screen you had to go to, so this has made it a lot easier for your COP admins to make sure that they can maintain their process and make sure that the information they need their users to put in is set up so that they are required to do it before they can continue on with the rest of their work. So one more very cool thing about the extended elements on your assessment type is you have the ability to predefine if you so choose at the admin level. So there's 3 things that you can do, or 2 things really, when you have your extended elements. If you have a fixed choice list of single or multiple, you have the ability to admin define that value if you know it for an assessment type. So default is always going to be creator's choice, which is current functionality. Somebody creates the assessment, they say, oh, I'm doing gate 1, I'll go ahead and put it in. But if you know that information at the process architect level, that admin level, you can go ahead, put that information in, and it just makes it easier and make sure that the correct information is getting put into your assessment type. And anywhere that assessment type is used, that value will carry down. So now that we have the ability to have different extended elements, it only makes sense that we allow you to customize your dot path per your assessment type as well. So within your assessment type configuration page, you'll have a section that's called key elements. Key elements is where you will choose your assessment extended elements that are on your current assessment type and any project elements that you need to add to your dot path, which is shown on the masthead of the assessment. So it's very similar to how we added our extended elements before. You just hit the plus key elements. You choose from the assessment elements that are on that assessment as well as project elements. You can reorder them just like extended elements by using those 6 dots on the left to click and drag them over. I'd like to point out that the order from top to bottom is the order from left to right on your dot path. So if you look at the 2 screenshots, you'll see that you have the 2 top to bottom, and if you look to the right at the masthead, they are left to right. I like to point that out because sometimes people will just put them in the list and then you're confused on why they're in a different order. So I just wanted to point that out. I'd say we're on to our role wizard. So everybody knows there's roles on assessments. You have to tell who's going to do the work, right? So within your assessment type configuration, we have your evaluator and your co-creator, which are on all your assessments. For your evaluator, the default for both of these will be creator's choice, but you do have the ability to map these roles to project extended elements of user. So if you know for project X, the lead engineer, who is Bob, will always do this, you can say, hey, evaluator, always make the lead engineer on the project the evaluator, and when that assessment type is chosen and that project is chosen, that person will be automatically assigned to the assessment without the user having to know who that person is, okay? So all of that would be from your project element. So you have to have a project element, a role. Outside of that, you will have to have the creator's choice, and they'll just have to put in who they want to fill those roles. So one of the last AC type configurations that we have for IQ20 right now is the ability to set up how your K-Packs are delivered. So when we deliver K-Packs to assessments, we have 2 main ways that we used previously, which was our filters and our sets. So within your AC types, you have the ability to specify which one of those you want to use per your AC type. So filtering is the same way you would do it now. You add which K-Pack elements that you use for delivery, and you go ahead and you can put those on your assessment type. So if you use different elements for different assessment types, that's no problem. You just add those applicable K-Pack elements to your individual AC types, and then you have the ability to customize those as well. The second one is sets. If you know, hey, these 10 K-Packs are done every single time, you can go ahead and set that set for an AC type, so that way the user doesn't have to remember a set ID or anything like that. They know if I use this particular assessment type, I will get these K-Packs in my assessment. And one last thing I do want to point out is the bottom right corner in IQ22. I know we're talking about IQ20 right now, but it only makes sense to include it here. we did add the ability to deliver KPACs by ID. So people do have certain use cases where you know the exact KPAC IDs that need to be used for an assessment type. So we've added that ability in IQ 22, but it's included here for now. In your assessment type configuration, you have the ability to set it for individual KPAC ID as well, if you so choose. So now that we've talked about all these changes and abilities to set these customizations for our assessment types, I want to talk about a little bit of the masthead visualizations that changed in IQ 20. So if you look at the picture on the screen, we have our current assessment masthead. It looks a little different. For me, the very first thing I notice is that the assessment type is now your main focus point of your masthead, right? So as soon as an evaluator gets their assessment, they know exactly what assessment type they're in. We moved it to the left, we've made it bold, we've made it bigger. In addition to that, we've also made our dot path bold as well. So those two things that help your evaluator identify the assessment they're in is bold right in front of their face. So when they open their assessment, they know that they're working on the correct thing. In addition to that, we did not get rid of our assessment ID, which was usually to the left. It's now just to the right of your assessment ID, your assessment type. It's in parentheses, and at the top, you have your project, which if you click on your project, you will get the same project flyout as we had previously with that project chip that was at the end of that assessment ID. So now we just moved it to the top. It's a little cleaner. It's easier for you to know that you can click it and get that project information. Next to that project, we also included our community of practice. So that way you have the full community of practice name as well as the COP ID so that you know that you're in the correct community of practice. And like I said earlier, for IQ 19, to the right of the screen, we have our assessment due date. It's still in the same spot. So if you do have a due date enabled, the users are able to see exactly when their assessment is due. Okay? So one of our next IQ 20 updates or highlights is more for our process architects. So there are some use cases where we have a prompt that will ask your evaluator, hey, do you want to advance your assessment? There's some use cases where you don't really want them to automatically go ahead and advance that status, right? Sometimes people see that pop up and they're just like, click it. And they're like, oh no, what did I do? I forgot to add an attachment, because they're not really reading it. They see a button, it's human nature, you gotta click it. So we added the ability in IQ 20 to toggle that off. So if you have a use case where you're like, hey, we need a minute before we go ahead and move to that next status. We don't want them to just jump and update that next status. Inside of your COP admin menu, as you can see on the screenshot on the screen, there is a prompt user to advance assessment status. If it's checked, that box is checked, then it's enabled. That means when the assessment is at 100% complete, which means all of the line items are at a conformance state that is set up to be complete, then they will get the prompt to say, hey, it's 100% complete. Do you want to go to the next status? If it's unchecked, they will not get that prompt. So they can complete the assessment, but they will then have to manually go to the top right corner and update their status to the next status after evaluation ready. So I just wanted to point that out. There are some use cases where you need that little buffer, and this is a way to prevent that early updating of statuses when you may need a review, and just for the user themselves, because sometimes you fill out the conformance and you forgot to add something. So it's very nice to allow them to be able to finish their work completely instead of having to bug the creator to put it back in evaluation ready. So Josh talked on this a little bit earlier with his. For copy line items, we added a visual indicator to let users know what line items were actually carried over from the previous assessment. If you look at our screenshot, it says copied from the particular assessment. You'll notice that an assessment is blue because it is a hyperlink. So if you click on the assessment ID name, it will open that assessment for you. So if there is a reason you need to look at the two together, you can definitely click on that, open up that previous assessment. Also, if you're like, hey, okay, I get it, it's been copied, I don't want to see the note anymore, you do have the ability to manually dismiss that message by hovering over that line. That dismiss message will pop up, and you can click it, and it will remove that message for you. Also, if in your process of your work, you end up updating the conformance state for one of the copied line items, then that message will also remove itself automatically. And this next one is mainly for your admins again. We got to have something for the admins because you guys are doing a lot of work, so we want to make it easy for you. So we added some additional validation before you can delete a COP. So now when you go to delete your COP, you'll get that pop-up and you'll be required to enter in delete before you permanently delete the COP. Because in Auros, when you delete something, it is gone. So we want to make sure that you know, hey, when you delete this, it will be gone. There's no accidents. So we added that additional validation for those admins so that way there's no accidents. All right, so we're moving right along. Now we're on IQ 21, okay? In IQ 21, we added some more configurations to our assessment type configurations. And then here we also made some improvements to some emails and some preserving of issue comments. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is assessment status by AC type. So basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. You have the ability to turn on assessment statuses per AC type versus previously, they were for the entire COP. This mainly came about because what is the very highly requested thing that is next on the next couple slides is we allow approval types per assessment type in IQ 21. So to do that, you have to have approval ready on. So we added the ability to choose your statuses per your assessment type. There's 2 statuses that will always be turned on: evaluation ready, assessment complete. Those things will always be there. You always have to tell people when they're ready to work on and when it's done. The 4 that are optional, you have pre-build, you have building, you have approval ready, which will allow you to add approval types, and then you have archive. So those 4 are optional and can be turned on per individual assessment type in your COP. The next thing that we added in, well, we didn't add it in IQ 21, but we allowed it per assessment type, is approval types. So the approval types, the functionality is the same, it's just a little different, it'll be in a different place. So if you look at that top right screenshot, you'll see that under assessment controls, now you have assessment types, you have approval flows, and you have approval types. On that approval type, when you go in to create a new approval type, you have the same information as before. You put in the name, what do you want to call it, maybe a manager, director, senior manager, whatever you want, whatever type of approval you're setting up. And then you'll have 2 settings that you'll be choosing within that approval type. The first one is the approver assignment. So like before, you have the ability to have creator's choice. That just means the assessment creator will say, hey, this person needs to approve it. But you also have the ability to admin define it. So if you know this particular approval type for this process is always going to be the same person, you can put them in. You also have the ability to allow the evaluator to put in the, to assign the approver if it's something where you may not know that approver when you first create the assessment. So they'll have the ability to edit the header and add that approver. And then the last one is you have the ability to map it to a project extended element. So similar to when we talked about the role wizard previously, for the evaluator, if you have a director on your project element and you're like, hey, the director needs to always approve this for whatever particular project, you can map it, and then that is automatically filled out when that assessment is created that has this approval type on it. The second setting we have is the complete when, and that just means when is this approval considered complete. So we have 3 options there. The first one is going to be your default. That means all approver, 1 rejects. The reason we have all approve is because you have the ability to have more than 1 person on a single approval type. So that's why we have the all approve or the 1 rejects. We also have an all respond option, as well as a 1 approves or 1 rejects option. So that just means 1 person, as long as 1 person responds to that approval type, then it is a complete approval type. So next we have our approval flows. So approval flows are going to allow you to take whatever approval types you have. You can use a single approval type. You can use multiple approval types. It really depends on what you need for your particular assessment types. So you'll click on your approval flows option in your menu, and it's very similar, at least initially, to your approval types. You'll create your new approval flow, and you can name it. I usually like to name it to the assessment type that I'm going to use it on because it makes it a lot easier when I go back and say, hey, I need to add this approval flow, and I named it something random and I don't know where it goes. So I always like to name it to the approval, the assessment type that it goes to. But after you name it, then you can choose what approval types you want included in this flow. So like I said, you can have 1 approval type, you can also use multiple. So maybe you have something where you need a manager and a director to approve it. You can put both of those approval types within that single approval flow. Once you have all of your approval types chosen, then you have, once again, 2 settings that you need to configure for your particular approval flow. And this is just going to be how it behaves once those approval types are done. So the first one is to complete when. And what that means is, when should I update the status of this assessment to complete? And you have 3 options. So that is, all approval types are complete. So that means whatever you set up in the approval type that says, hey, this approval type is done, as long as that's met, then we can go ahead and complete this assessment. Then we also have one type approved. So if you only need one of the multiple approval types to approve it, you can set it up that as long as one of them approves it, then you're good to go. You can count it as approved. And then you have the last one where all types are complete. So everybody has to do something. All of the approval types, they have to do something to respond to whatever their complete setting is from previous. The second one is you have the ability to revert the assessment status back to evaluation ready. So you have to say how you want approval flow to behave for that as well. And you also have 2 options for that, which are, I'm gonna look down here so I can see it. The one type rejected, which is what most people do. So, hey, something's wrong. Let's go ahead and send it back to evaluation ready. Let's let that evaluator take the comment that the approver put in and fix that and then resubmit it for approval. And then you also have the second one where it's, I believe it's all types complete. Yeah. So you have those 2 options to pick, so you can figure out when you want the assessment to either move forward or move back to let the evaluator fix whatever the issues are. So in IQ 21, we made a few email notification improvements, specifically the KPAC sunset emails. If you are a COP admin or author, you've gotten these before, and it's just a long list of stuff and you weren't sure what was what. We have updated that to categorize it by author, so you can see, hey, this author has these many KPACs and so on and so forth. We also included the KPAC title, as well as the KPAC ID, as well as how many days past due they are from their sunset date. So it makes it a lot easier for those admins to go in and talk to their SMEs, their authors, and say, hey, can you go look at these KPACs, make sure they're taken care of, make sure they're up to date based upon our sunset. So then this is one of our last things for IQ 21, and this is one that I was actually pretty happy for because I've gotten burned by this a few times. You go, you update this issue, you write this beautiful comment that gives all the updates you need to give, you go to save it, and then you get that growl message saying, oops, I forgot to fill in a required element within the issue. So now when you go brought back to your issue and you fill in that element, when you go to save it again, your comment will be preserved. Instead of what happened previously, I would hope that I copied it because now I have to remember what I wrote because I wrote a huge book and it's all gone. So now we at least have the ability to preserve that comment for you. So if you do have to go back and change something, you don't have to rack your brain and hope you copied something. You'll have that comment preserved, and then you can go ahead and close your issue, confident that the correct information was passed on to those on the issue. So now we are to our last IQ update, which is IQ 22. And as you can see here, we have quite a few highlights for this particular release. A couple that I'll talk about right now is the KPAC delivery by ID, which I talked about back in IQ 20 when we were talking about our KPAC delivery setup and for the wizard. Another one I want to talk about is the due date reminder notifications. In IQ 19, we introduced that overall due date, which allowed you to send out reminder emails. With those reminder emails, if your evaluator updates the status to approval ready prior to whatever reminder emails you have being sent out, once the assessment is in approval ready, those reminders will be sent to the approver instead of the evaluator. Because there's nothing worse than your evaluator getting their work done, sending it off to approval, and then it sits in approval forever, and then it becomes past due. So those email notifications will be sent to your approver to make sure that they do their part so that that work still gets completed on time. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is bulk create. How many people in here have used the bulk builder in the past? Hand raise. Okay, you guys are gonna love this because first thing, get rid of that Excel template. We don't need it anymore. When you're in your wizard, if you look at the first screenshot, top right corner, you got a button that says bulk create. Click bulk create. You have two options to create your assessments by project or by assessment. It's very similar to what you used previously with the template. Each row that you have in this bulk create will give you a new assessment. So you'll click the plus assessment for however many assessments you need to create. 5, 10, 20, however many you need, just click the button to add those line items. Once you have those line items in your bulk create, you're probably wondering what's gonna happen. We put all this customization in with my assessment types. Is that still gonna work? Yes, it's gonna work. When you choose your assessment types, all of your extended elements that you have configured for your assessment type will show up so that you can fill in that information. If you have those items predefined, those values will show up in those extended element columns as well. If you do have to do a couple different assessment types, you can add those different assessment types, and those different extended elements will show up for the assessment types that they're not on. Those boxes will be grayed out. They'll be an NA, so you can't put anything in for assessment types that don't need that information. So you still have the ability to go ahead and create those multiple assessments, but you can do it right within your standard work of creating an assessment in your wizard, and the admin doesn't have to go in the back and set up any builders, set up any templates. You just go ahead through the wizard and you have the ability to bulk create. So the next item is something that was brought up probably as soon as we introduced the assessment control type configurations, and that's an auto advance through the wizard. So there's gonna be situations where you're either in an assessment knowledge model, you're in a method assessment step where you're copying things from a parent, or you have items predefined in your assessment type, and so your assessment creators will get in their assessment wizard, and they'll have a step completely filled out, but they'll still need to click continue. With the auto advance, any steps that are fully completed, all the required items are filled out, they will be bypassed. They will auto advance to the next step. So depending on your use case, on your situation, you have a assessment knowledge model where your project, your COP, your assessment type, all of your ACEs are already predefined. When your assessment creator goes to create that assessment, they'll see step 4 so that they can put in who needs to do their work. And they won't even have to worry about clicking through those previous pages. Same with what Josh showed a little earlier. If you have items mapped, so if you look at the screenshot on the left side of the bottom of the screen, within your assessment type configurations for your KPAC deliveries, you have the ability to map those KPAC filter elements to an assessment extended element. There's a lot of situations where you'll have the same assessment extended elements that you use for KPAC delivery. And so instead of making those users put that information in twice, you can say, hey, whatever they put here, I want you to put it here. And so that way, by them having that stuff already filled out or filling it out earlier, they'll put in their roles, they'll click continue, and it'll bypass even the select KPAC step and go directly to the assessment. So it just takes a couple clicks out. I mean, I think the assessment wizard is a very easy way to create assessments. It's been a great addition to the software, but any way that you can save a couple clicks is worth it. So it's a really nice feature that we introduced. I do want to show a quick demo, even though you saw a little bit of it earlier. Okay. So here we have a community of practice, and usually, like I said, the auto advance is usually going to show up most when you're using assessment knowledge models, or if you're using like within a method assessment step. But for this example, I'm just going to create an assessment, and then I'm just going to use a different assessment type where we've gone ahead and used some of that admin defined functionality and that mapping functionality to be able to show that auto advance. So very first thing, we're going to put in our project. Then we're going to choose our assessment type. So for this, I just called it a gate requirement assessment, right? So you're creating this assessment, and you know, hey, it should be done 2 weeks after, or a week after it's created. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick the 15th as the due date. I know that this is gonna be for the first gate. I know that it's gonna be for this cab product, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and choose those required elements, and I'm gonna hit continue. Next, I need to go ahead, say who this is for. Today it's me. Then we're gonna click continue. Next, we get to this last step for the delivery. Okay, I chose a gate requirement assessment, so I'm assuming I'll probably need this requirement KPAC type. I said in the third step that I wanted gate 1, so I'll go ahead and click that again, and then I'll go ahead and create my assessment. So for the most part, that wasn't too painful. It's pretty simple, didn't take too long, but if you gotta make a lot of those clicks and re-enter in the same time, it's very easy to accidentally slip, pick the wrong thing from the list, pick the wrong date on the calendar. So by using your assessment type, if I know KPAC type requirement is used, I know that they're gonna put in a gate. So let me map the choice from the assessment element to my KPAC element. I know what product they're using. So I can go ahead and say, let's go ahead and pick cab from the admin level, right? So let's go ahead and recreate that same assessment using a separate assessment type where we filled out some of that stuff for those users, because as the process architect, we already know that those are the choices they're gonna choose. So once again, we're gonna choose our project. If this was an assessment knowledge model, 9 times out of 10, this would probably already be filled out, so you wouldn't see this, as well as this assessment type page. So I'm gonna choose this auto advanced assessment type. What you're gonna notice is when I click continue, we're gonna skip this next step because I've already predefined, I've set up our due date to offset from the date open for a week, because I just said that we know it's gonna take a week, right? I also said that I knew the gate, so I put that in there. I also said that I knew the product, so I put that in at the admin level. So when I click continue, we're gonna go directly to the assigned roles. And if you'll see on the left, all of that information, that October 15th that I picked manually last time is there, the gate's there, as well as the cab. Here, you do have the ability to map this, so if I were to map this to somebody, it would have skipped this as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and put in that evaluator. I'm gonna click continue, and you're gonna notice that we're gonna skip past select KPACs, because I already know that a requirement KPAC type is needed because I picked a gate requirement assessment. So I predefined that at the admin level, as well as mapping the assessment element of gate to the KPAC element of gate. So when I click that, we're gonna go directly to the assessment. And if you look at this assessment versus the first one, there's literally no difference. They're the exact same assessment. You got the exact same information that you needed for that assessment, but you just made it a little easier on that assessment creator. You took I don't want to say you took the options out of their hand, but as the process architect, you know what needs to be done for that particular assessment type. So just go ahead and put it in there, define it, or map it to make it a little easier on those assessment creators. All right, so we're gonna go on to our next item. So the next thing that we added in IQ 22 is we integrated our knowledge processing engine directly into our conformance palette. So for those of you who have used knowledge processing engines in the past, you know that when you have them, you gotta make sure you have that KPE column in your assessment view. Otherwise, people are gonna get work and you're gonna be sitting there, why aren't they using all these knowledge processing engines I'm setting up for them? I set up these assessment knowledge models, they're not seeing them. You don't have to worry about that anymore. If there is a KPAC that has a knowledge processing engine on it, it will be automatically integrated into the conformance palette. So as you can see on the screenshot to the left of the screen, it only is on those KPACs that have knowledge processing engine. So if you don't have them on all of them, you don't have to worry about just some like dummy KPE icon sitting there. It's not gonna show up. It only shows up for your items that have a knowledge processing engine. That's for all of them. Model tables, assessment knowledge models, it doesn't matter what kind of knowledge processing engine, that icon will show up right above the rest of your conformance states currently in your conformance palette. When you click on that icon, I'm gonna use the model table for the example, so this middle one here, you click on that, if you see in the top right corner, the value table or the model table opens the exact same way that it does today. It allows you to enter in whatever data you need to enter in to complete that model table. When you click evaluate and close, if you have autoconformance turned on in your COP, which I will hope you would if you're using the knowledge processing engines, then when you come back to your assessment, you'll see that the conformance state will be picked. You still have the ability to hit the overflow menu and change that if necessary. You also have the ability to open up that value table or that model table again, or that knowledge processing engine to update data or whatever you need. If it's if it's an assessment knowledge model, you'll have the icon, the little assessment icon with the numbers, so you can click on that to open your assessment or to see the little progress bar on how that's doing from your parent assessment. So the next thing we have is more for your overall admins. You have a lot of customers that have super secure data. You have things in your instance that you need to put the security banner on to let people know, hey, this is how everything is going to go in this instance. This is how you need to put in this information, or who is available to see this information. It's a super simple thing to add in your overall admins. You just click on that security banner and just enable it and write whatever you want in the message. Whatever you put in there, it's going to be displayed right at the top of the screen and all of the assets. So your assessments, your KPACs, reports, everywhere in your screen here, you're going to see this bar with that message that you put there. And then our last update, I believe, that we're going to go over for IQ 22 is we made updates to our assessment email notifications. So basically, previously, you would get those emails. It'd be a lot of words. Some of them would be helpful. Most of them wouldn't be. But we have fixed that issue, and we have introduced a very simplified version of our email notifications. If you'll see at the two examples on the right, not only will it show your due date if you have it enabled, as well as the actual date and either how many days you have left or overdue, depending on what day it is with your due date. You'll also have your project information, your community of practice information, your assessment type, and you will have your dot path. And by including your dot path in these assessment emails, it allows you to kind of customize what's in your email. So when somebody gets these emails, they see that dot path, they know exactly from that email, oh, this is this assignment for this project, for this particular group, for this particular product, without having to open the assessment to figure out what it is. So it's super helpful if you have maybe somebody who has multiple assessments, maybe they have multiple approvals, and they're trying to make sure they're opening the right one the first time instead of opening going through 5 or 6 emails to figure out which one is which. These new email notifications will help extremely with those issues moving forward. So any questions? I know I went through a lot of stuff, but I wanted to make sure I got through everything. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
When selecting a KPAC ID for assessment, can it be from another community of practice?
I don't think so right now. If it's pulled into the community, like you can't go, like if I'm in COP1 and I want to go to COP5 and pull KPACs from there, but if the KPACs from COP5 are in COP1, then you can. So if they're pushed or pulled to that community, you have the ability to.
So you had mentioned that you could control the extended elements by type.
Yes.
Assessment. Does that include the secondary elements?
No. So assessment secondary elements are still whole COP. This is strictly assessment control extended elements.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that something anybody wants? All right, look, I see a couple hand raises. Guess we'll be making a note of that.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Kamyle.
All right, thank you, everybody.